And of course, that's going to be disheartening. They were feeling now, I fought for my country, I've proven myself, I am a man, I should be allowed to take my place in American society. And once again, American society spurned them.
When American soldiers returned to the battlefield in World War II, over 1 million black men were drafted. Despite their record of valor in all of the nation's previous wars, over 90% of black soldiers had only service or labor jobs. By late 1944, there were 134,000 blacks serving in Europe, yet only one black unit saw combat. The all-black 761st Tank Battalion, nicknamed the Black Panthers. This unit, which included many New Yorkers, finally got to fight when German forces damaged all our frontline tank battalions in the Battle of the Bulge. The 761st did significant damage to their German opponents.
Many of the white commanders in World War II had a prejudice that they felt that blacks were simply inferior. Now, as it turned out in World War II, we see just the opposite. And it's evident in the Tuskegee Airmen, who were one of the most distinguished air units during World War II. Even the quartermasters, the people who were known primarily for the back work, labor work. The quartermasters took part in the Red Ball Express, which was able to supply Patton's army with over 500,000 tons of fuel and armament. But blacks distinguished themselves throughout the war. We had tank units. It's really during World War II, which helps the nation to comprehend that, well, maybe something should be done here. So that finally President Truman, through an act of the executive branch, desegregated the Army by 1948.
Many black New Yorkers also served with honor in Korea and Vietnam, including Colin Powell, the son of Jamaican immigrants who grew up in the South Bronx. Powell, the Secretary of State under President George W. Bush, was previously National Security Advisor to President Reagan and head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time of the Gulf War.
Colin Powell tells us that you can make it to the top as an African American. You really can succeed in the military. And people will listen to you, not only because you know what you're talking about, but also because you've distinguished yourself in the service.
Although many thousands of African Americans served with distinction in the United States military, their opportunities at home were severely limited by oppression and prejudice. Yet many were able to realize the American dream and have a profound impact on the business and economy of the nation. Many black citizens of New York were able to thrive despite the obstacles they faced. The most significant business development that changed the history of black New Yorkers forever began as a little-noticed housing boom in Upper Manhattan. A shrewd real estate entrepreneur named Philip Payton decided to put into play Booker T. Washington's theory that blacks could make it in America if the race got a bank book. Payton's Afro-American Realty Company spearheaded the creation and growth of Black Harlem when he cheaply purchased vacant apartments and then rented them to black tenants. By 1915, over 50,000 blacks lived in Harlem. It soon became the energetic center for African American culture, changing New York and America forever.
There were lots of properties that had been built in Harlem on speculation, and because there were economic upheavals in the early 20th century, late 19th century. And to fill those apartments, Philip Payton put up billboards. He put up the billboards in the subways. Philip Payton was an entrepreneur, a real estate agent, and he often told the story about two white building owners in Harlem on 134th Street who were feuding one against the other. And one actually approached Payton and encouraged him, offered him the opportunity to put blacks into the building. This was a way that the property owner figured that he could get back at his neighbor. And what the property owner didn't realize was that this was going to be the start. This was going to be the start of many thousands of blacks coming to Harlem. The real key to Harlem is the development of the IRT subway in 1904. Once that subway opens and allows people to travel from lower Manhattan to uptown, that really was the major spur for development in Harlem. And so Peyton just papered the subways with advertisements for blacks to come to Harlem because there were places to live. At the same time, we've got a migration coming from the South, where there are literally hundreds of thousands of blacks who were leaving the South after 1900, many of them feeling there was more opportunity in the North. Hundreds of thousands go to Chicago, to Detroit, but the greatest number come to Harlem. And that's the point where Harlem becomes really the capital, the black capital, not only of the United States, but in many ways the world.
The queen of black entrepreneurism was Madam C.J. Walker, who in 1914 built a townhouse in Harlem at 108-110 West 136th Street, which included a fully equipped beauty parlor that utilized her hair care products, which made her America's first black woman millionaire.
Any African American woman who has an ounce of concern about her appearance has got to give her props to, if you will, Madam C.J. Walker, because had it not been for her vision and her expertise and sitting in the kitchen working on various concoctions to beautify our hair, we may not have had the steps that we've gotten today as far as African Americans, women's hair care. For sure, many of us have got to be grateful that Madam Walker put care into African American products.
Despite the success of many of New York's black entrepreneurs and business people, it wasn't until the early 1970s that black New Yorkers finally began to play a role in the nation's financial center, Wall Street. In 1970, Joseph Sewalls became the first black member of the New York Stock Exchange at the age of 30. And in 1972, Jerome Hartwell Holland became the first black American to obtain a seat on the board of the New York Stock Exchange. These were significant achievements. They were the result of a long, hard battle fought by African Americans to become full citizens of this nation and to have the opportunities available to all citizens under the Constitution. One of the most important developments in the history of black New York, and one that would foster further acceptance of blacks into the American mainstream, was the era known as the Harlem Renaissance, a time when black literature, art, culture, and music flourished in Harlem. In the 1920s, black artists, writers, and entertainers from all across the nation flocked to Harlem. And for the next 3 decades, Harlem became the center of black culture in America.
The 1920s, Harlem became the mecca for black America. We found blacks, often very talented blacks, Duke Ellington coming from Washington, musicians coming from the South, from Louisiana, from Chicago, all coming to Harlem. So we get this blend of culture, whether it be music or literature, poetry, all coming to Harlem. Also, within literature, there was Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, Claude McKay, just a host of artists and writers. But there's also something else happening in the 1920s, and that's called Prohibition. And this absence of this prohibition against alcoholic beverages really helped spawn speakeasies, and very often whites from downtown were looking for places to go and places where they could have entertainment, which included liquor, and Harlem became a major force there. The two really worked together, Prohibition and the blacks who were migrating to Harlem during the 1920s. Prohibition helps to attract more whites from downtown who see the entertainers, and they begin to see the talent that is in Harlem, and they begin to read the literature more and more.
Time and circumstances brought people to Harlem. Many of the northern cities, Chicago, Detroit, the northern cities were the place that most people were coming because that's where the jobs were. It just happened to be the right mix in Harlem where you have musicians coming and you have other entertainers coming. You have at the dancers. You have writers coming to Harlem. And they all seemed to converge at the right time. And it brought about a renaissance, a rebirth of black culture. And it just centers in Harlem.
It was in 1922 that Duke Ellington and his band arrived in Manhattan. Following Ellington came numerous legendary black performers who would have a lasting impact on the history of entertainment in America. They appeared in venues such as the Cotton Club, the Apollo Theater, the Savoy. Among them were legendary names such as Cab Calloway, Louis Armstrong, Bill Bojangles Robinson, Nat King Cole, Lena Horne, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, and of course the great Count Basie.
I was leaving from Chicago to go to New York with my band. We had an engagement to play at the Savoy Ballroom. And on our way in to New York from Chicago, we went via Kansas City. We played a ballroom there in Kansas City called the Altarion Ballroom. And there was a guy there that was playing organ in a movie house. This guy's name was Count Basie. Count Basie, he could make an organ talk. I dug this cat so, and I said, well, man, I'm going on to New York. I said, and when I get to New York, I want you to get my band. I want you to be a piano player in my band.
Indeed, since that time of the Harlem Renaissance, African-American entertainers, actors, musicians, artists, and writers have had an enormously profound impact on American culture and continue to do so to this day. Yet all of these many great contributions of the last 5 decades had their roots in the Harlem Renaissance, a time when Harlem, New York was the cultural center and symbol of African-American pride and success. In 1906, President Teddy Roosevelt appointed Charles Anderson Collector of Internal Revenue for the 2nd District of New York, which included Wall Street. This made Anderson New York's most powerful black politician at that time. Black New Yorkers were acutely aware that the all-powerful Tammany Hall, the political organization which ran the city at this time, had little regard or concern for black New Yorkers. These racial inequities led many blacks to join the Universal Negro Improvement Association of black leader Marcus Garvey. In 1917, Marcus Garvey launched the UNIA in Harlem. He strongly urged blacks to start their own businesses and to become a political and economic force through the success of these business ventures.
Harlem, around the end of World War I, is going to be a place that many people start to migrate. And one of those persons was Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey comes in with a whole brand new message that builds the African American community. And it just seemed like this was a right time, the right place for a person like Garvey, who comes in and says, you are, in essence, you are somebody, that you are beautiful. He was definitely a man ahead of his time.
Garvey's achievements become all the more remarkable when we realize that he basically wrote himself into world history over a period of about 7 years. Garvey arrives here in like 1916. He really doesn't start getting his movement off the ground until 1917.